All right, let's jump right in. There's this really fascinating and honestly super important puzzle we're going to unpack today. It's this. You've got a nation like Sri Lanka, just overflowing with talent and potential, right? So why has it been such a struggle for them to create businesses that can compete on the world stage?
So here's how we're going to tackle this. We'll start with the country's crippled potential. Then we'll dig into this culture of connections that popped up. After that, we'll look at the steep price of protectionism. And finally, we'll wrap up with the huge choice the nation is facing right now.
All right, first up, a crippled potential. This is where we really get to the heart of the problem.
And this is the question, right? The one the source material really sinks its teeth into. I mean, it's not like there's a shortage of smart people or great ideas in Sri Lanka. Not at all. The issue, and we're going to see this unfold, is much deeper. It's systemic. So, what was the real roadblock?
Well, for a long time, the business environment was just a total minefield. Seriously, imagine trying to start a company when you're dealing with constant political instability, ethnic tensions, and a bureaucracy that could just crush you. And then, bam, the rules change overnight and your entire business could just vanish. And to top it all off, you had this pervasive culture of crony capitalism.
Okay, so when you're in an environment that chaotic, how on earth do you even survive as a business? Well, that's what brings us to our next part, this culture of connections that grew out of that very struggle.
And this is such a critical point. To stay afloat, businesses had to adapt. But here's the twist. They didn't adapt by innovating. They adapted by learning how to navigate the system. Success wasn't about who had the best product anymore. It was about who knew how to play the game.
And this kicked off a really destructive downward spiral. It all starts with just trying to survive, right? But to survive, you had to have political connections. Those connections became the real currency, the real power. Pretty soon, finding loopholes, even evading taxes, that just became normal. And the tragic outcome? If you were an honest business owner trying to play by the rules, you had a brutal choice. Adapt and play the dirty game, or just disappear.
So what you end up with is a completely warped business culture. It's a system where the rewards don't go to the innovators, the people actually trying to build something better for the country. No, the rewards go to the insiders, the ones who know who to call and which rules to bend. It's about gaming the system, not improving it.
Okay, so this internal culture of connections wasn't happening in a vacuum. It had huge, real-world consequences on the outside. And that takes us right into our third section. The price of protectionism.
Think about it. When your businesses aren't built to be competitive, you basically have two paths you can take. You can either push them to compete globally, which demands constant innovation and being super efficient, or you can protect them. And according to the source, Sri Lanka chose to protect them. They put up these import restrictions, which kind of shielded local businesses. But the downside was huge. Innovation stalled, and they just weren't ready to compete abroad.
And that choice set off another painful chain reaction, like a row of dominoes. First, with those import restrictions in place, the country wasn't exporting as much. Then, because exports were down, the amount of foreign money coming in just plummeted. And when you don't have that foreign currency, you can't buy the stuff you need from other countries. The end result? Life got a whole lot harder for regular people.
Yeah, and we're not just talking about numbers on a spreadsheet here. This hit people where they live. It meant you go to the market and prices are higher. You go to the store and there are fewer choices. It just made Sri Lanka a much tougher place to build a life.
So, all of this history, all these decisions, they all lead up to right now, which brings us to our final and maybe most important section, a nation's choice.
And it's really important to get this. The crisis Sri Lanka is facing didn't just happen overnight. It wasn't some random accident. It's the result of a long chain reaction, built piece by piece, bad decision by bad decision, over many decades.
So the big question is, how do you break a chain that's been forged over decades? And this is where the source material brings in the current political landscape, asking a pretty direct question. Is the NPP government the one that's trying to finally snap that chain?
Now, to be clear, the source we're looking at describes the NPP's approach in a very specific way. It calls them the most market-friendly government in the recent past. So it's really setting them apart from the governments that came before.
And this sets up what the source presents as a huge dilemma for voters. It's like there are two doors. Behind one door, you have the path of change, long-term, disciplined, but it's going to require a lot of patience. Behind the other door is the path of the past, short-term thinking, stuff driven by emotion, racism, populism, and, well, the same politicians who are part of the old system.
And look, this is so much more than just politics. The stakes here are incredibly high.
Because as the source material makes crystal clear, the future of Sri Lanka's economy, its ability to finally unleash all that potential and build those amazing world-class businesses, it all hangs on this one choice.